Hello and welcome to my dungeon. In this Game Master's perspective, I'm going to present you the new Coriolis The Great Dark role-playing game from Free League. I will tell you what this game is. I will briefly explain the rules, show you my highlights. I will also compare it to its predecessor, Coriolis The Third Horizon, and I will finish this video with other books that you might want to use with this and who I think this game is for. If you like content like this, consider liking the video and subscribing to my channel. There are also affiliate links where you can find PDFs of this role-playing game, Coriolis The Great Dark, and also pretty much everything that came out for Coriolis The Third Horizon. If you follow the link, I get a small percentage that I will put forward to get more role-playing games. Thank you very much. Now, without further ado, let's start this GM's perspective. Coriolis The Great Dark is a sci-fi role-playing game from Free League using Free League's Mutant Year Zero engine, which is a D6 dice pool system, to put it simply. And The Great Dark is inspired by expeditions of discovery and daring adventure of the 19th and 20th century. And on one hand, the expeditions that really happened, like Scott going out to find the South Pole in the Antarctic, mountaineers trying to be the first to reach the summit of K2 and Mount Everest, diving into the Mariana Trench, going boldly where no man has gone before. And it's also inspired by fiction of that kind, like think Jules Verne's 20,000 Miles Under the Sea, Journey to the Center of the Earth, Journey to the Moon. It is about exploration and discovery. That is a huge departure from the old game, The Third Horizon, which basically is Firefly if you replace Western elements with stories of 1001 Night. This is a huge setting with like 36 star systems and 5 times as many planets, 12 factions with sub-factions. You can play anything, be anything, huge setting, huge freedom to do whatever you want. In contrast to that, The Great Dark is a focused setting. You can also see that in how thick the books are. The Great Dark is set in the diaspora. An expedition came from the Third Horizon. They were settlers. They were looking for a star system that could settle far away from the wars that were plaguing the Third Horizon. But the journey was much harder than anticipated, and when they got there, there was nothing. Most importantly, there were no jump portals. They were stranded in a system without a habitable planet. The survivors cobbled together from their colony ships a space station inside of a big asteroid. They called it Ship City, and that is the main hub of civilization in the Great Dark setting. Eventually, the survivors didn't find jump portals, but they found a phenomenon in space, something like rivers where space-time flowed differently. And these led to different star systems. They called this the slipstream. And to travel through the slipstream, they had to build huge and massively rugged ships that could survive the hardships of this voyage. When they started exploring, they found ruins left behind by an ancient civilization, the portal builders, that were also very important in the Third Horizon, left many of the ruins in that setting there. But it's really the major focus of the setting to explore these builder ruins and discover the ancient secrets, to then bring them back to Ship City and spread hope, make life for everyone better, and eventually maybe find a working jump portal or a habitable planet. For now, they have discovered a few things. One thing that isn't so great is the Blight, a form of energy, sickness, a corruption. No one's really sure what it is, but it's in the slipstream and it's in the ruins, deep in the ruins. It has effects like eyes, black eyes growing on your spacesuit. You hear voices, you see distant vistas. Maybe you go mad or you mutate. Maybe you manifest some psychic powers. But they also found the birds. Probably an engineered species of birds that was created to fight the Blight. No one is really sure. And everyone who had tried to do like a vivisection of the bird to find out what the thing was didn't live to tell of it. But these birds can not only sense the Blight, but they can shield the explorers from the Blight. And with a device that they discovered and retro-engineered called the Garuda device, they can communicate with the birds, use them to scout ahead, give them orders to shield the group from harm, to cleanse an area of Blight. So the birds became at the same time the symbol of the explorers, the symbol of hope, and one of their most useful tools, pets, whatever you want to call them, friends. Actually, the setting from The Great Dark is so completely different from the Third Horizon that it might put off fans of the earlier game. There are some token remnants, some equipment you might recognize, some of the noble houses, the icon belief, but all of that really takes a backseat in The Great Dark because it has this laser focus on exploration. For example, there aren't even player ships like there are in the Third Horizon. You get a rover, a ground vehicle, and you can customize that. You get a shuttle, but no big ships that become the second home of the players. Instead, they can join the expeditions on the great ships. And these great expeditions become the reason and the hub for a campaign, going through a certain, maybe new slipstream route, exploring these new and dangerous builder ruins. Let's take a look at the book itself. This is a stitch-bound hardcover sturdy construction, and it is printed on glossy, high-quality paper. The artwork in this book is, like I say, with many of Free League's role-playing games, awesome, stunning, moody, expressionistic, really sets the mood, the tone for this game. I also have the PDF of the art book, and I've been showing some of the pictures from that. As for the rules, it's a D6 dice pool system. Your character has 6 attributes: strength, agility, insight, logic, empathy, and perception. And for any given check, you first take dice according to that attribute. So 2 for strength in this case. And then maybe you can add some more dice from relevant talents. The game doesn't really have a skill system. Instead, it has a huge amount of talents, and many talents are just a specialization that give you more die in a certain situation. For example, when you attack in melee, normally you take strength, but if you are a blade specialist, then you add more dice for that. Works like a skill system, difference being you only note down the talents that you absolutely need, so there's just bit space saved on the character sheet, I'd say. Thirdly, you add more dice from your gear. Good gear gives you a bonus to your die pool, and then you roll and count the 6s. No 6s in this case. If this is the case, or if you want just more successes, maybe to deal more damage, you can push the roll. That means you can re-roll, but now any ones will give you damage, will make you lose hope. Hope is like a pool of mental points, stress points. You lose them all the time whenever anything bad happens that's not really damage, that's like damage on the soul. And if they go to 0, you have a mental breakdown. Furthermore, if the dice you get from your gear show 1, your gear gets damaged and loses 1 or more points of its bonus until you have time to fix your gear. I like that mechanic because it simulates stuff breaking down, gear attrition, which in a game of resource management, survival and exploration is an important aspect, I think. For combat, everyone draws a card. Then you act from low numbers to high numbers. These are the cards from the third horizon. Normally they would go from 1 to 10, but I don't have any cards for the Great Dark yet. This determines initiative. When it's your turn, you can exchange cards with anyone of lower initiative, even the adversaries. And during each turn, you get a movement action. If you spend that, you tap your card and you get an action like shooting, attacking someone melee, using an item, and if you spend that, you turn the card upside down to keep track of who can still act. Because if you are attacked and you want to do something about it, you want to block, you want to evade, then you have to spend your action. That means that the action economy in this game can be really punishing. And if you lose the initiative, you might have to defend for the round and just try not to get too much damage until you can get the initiative and inflict the same punishment on your adversaries if they block at all. Monsters often don't. Compared to the third horizon, this is not just streamlined, this is minimized. In the third horizon, you had action points you could use for a normal attack, a fast attack, to avoid use psychic powers. A lot more options, a lot more going on, but also a lot more complicated, a lot slower at the table. Since combat is not really the focus of the Great Dark, it can go by with this minimalistic combat system But if you want to have more fighting and more action in your game, you might put some more optional house rules like cover fire, for example, into the combat system to make it more complex, give it more tactical depth. Your character is made up of the attributes, talents, and your gear. But there is more build complexity than that, because your crew also gets experience, gets crew points, and you can spend that on crew maneuvers. These are not specific to a character, but to the role they take in the crew. There's the Delver, one that takes care of how the delving itself is done, has to roll on climbing for everyone. The Scout, who's scouting ahead to see what is up. The Guard, who's looking out for danger. The Burrower, who's removing obstacles from the way, burrowing. And the Archaeologist, who's documenting the finds. Your crew has its own gear, it has its rover, a big land vehicle that will become its home away from home, that you can also upgrade with credit and crew points. Same to your shuttle you will be using to transport you and your rover within a star system. Last but not least, there's the bird, an integral part of your crew that has powers and abilities that are indispensable to deal with the Blight and to have a successful delve. Your bird also levels up from your crew points. Once again, you can buy some bird's powers. It starts with a number of basic powers, but you can buy more as the campaign progresses. And in this interplay with your character, their crew role, the crew maneuvers, the bird, and the bird effects, the game gets its complexity. As I said, the bird is very important. It has a number of basic powers: attack, defend, clear blight, scan for blight, soak up blight, glow in the dark. Then a number of powers you can train the bird with depending on the type of bird. Lots of ways to customize this aspect of your crew. Then you have your delving suit, special armor to protect you from the Blight that look like old school diving suits. There's a lot of steampunk style going on with much of the artwork, but especially with the delving equipment. Then you have your own personal rover. There are just 3 base types, but they are as different as huge ground vehicles can be. The one on wheels, the one on tracks, and the one on nothing, because it's gravity projection, it's floating. These become your home away from home, and you can upgrade and personalize them as you see fit. Maybe you need an excavator arm, maybe some jump jets, or maybe comfortable bunk beds to make it more homely. Or how about some weapons, a missile launcher, or just old school saw blades to ram your enemies and saw them into pieces. There's not a huge selection of upgrades and weapons, but all of it is its own thing, quite unique. Behind the description of the Lost Horizon, its history, its people, the guilds, the factions that are vying for power and control within ship city if you want to have a bit of city play, a bit of intrigue. And this is your chapter, a description of ship city, the one big city that will be your home base where you return to between expeditions. And after all of that, we find space travel and expeditions. The slipstream is explained, the great ships in detail, what the captain does, what everyone in the crew does, what the player characters can do during the long voyage. Hazards, random encounters, mishaps that you will have to deal during the voyage. And here we also find the crew's shuttles. Personally, I would have put the space travel before the setting description, together with the other rules and the equipment, so rovers and shuttles could be next to each other. Shuttles, once again, just 3 types, but very different types, and a number of upgrades and weapons, each of them their very own thing. We've got rules for land exploration. This is pretty much hex exploration, overland exploration. Finally, the delve. This is what it's all about. This is the dungeons you delve into. This is the mountains you climb. These are the ravines you descend into. There are detailed rules for the procedure of delving, what every role does, mishaps that might befall every member of the crew. Much of it comes down to managing supply. How much supply can you carry? How far can you go before you are forced to turn back? In longer and more difficult delves, you may have to do a base camp and a halfway camp, make a few trips just to amass a bit of supply there. While this is a very important part of the delving mechanics, it's also super streamlined, maybe a bit too simplified, because supply can be anything. It is oxygen, water, food, energy, ammunition, and light sources, all rolled into one. That also means when you're running low on supplies, you have to roll on supply incidents. You get a battery warning, maybe your light goes out, you have to deal with that while you're running even lower on supplies. And if you run out, you start to suffer damage, despair, and blight until you cannot continue any longer. These procedures are kind of just rolled and you see what happens. And the decision that you have to make is when to make camp, when to start your return trip, to manage and estimate your reach, your supply. Other decisions really depend on the delve that you're going into, that the adventure gives you, that the GM has designed for you. When you come into forks in the road, in many cases you will start with a player map. You will have sent the bird ahead, you will have used your Delver Echo, and you will be given the player map. You can see the areas of low blight, and where there's more and more blight, it becomes hazy and fuzzy. Don't really know what is there, but that is probably also the point of interest. And then these decisions become, for example here, where do we enter? Do we go into these rooms or straight down to save time? The decisions come when you have to select your route. So as a GM, you should give some hints of what is to expect, how it looks, what your scanners say you, how long the route is, what the blight levels are. Maybe you can have them scout ahead with the bird so that your players can make a decision based on information rather than just flipping a coin. That's good advice for any dungeon crawl, by the way. If your players come to a crossing and the dungeon goes left and right, and they ask, yeah, what's left and what right, and you tell them, yeah, there's nothing different about the corridors, look exactly the same, smell exactly the same, then they can't make a decision. They could just as well flip a coin, and that's just not very interesting. This is the opportunity to do a bit of foreshadowing, give them just a hint of what is down that corridor. Maybe they hear a skittling noise. Maybe they smell something rotten. That allows them to make a decision and then live with the consequences of that decision, which I always think is the most interesting aspect of a role-playing game. But yeah, back to the delving mechanics. Once you enter the points of interests, you go to a more traditional top-down dungeon map. And while in the adventure in the book, this is just a single chamber, in the quick start we had a number of connected chambers. This becomes a more traditional dungeon crawl with moment-to-moment action and decisions rather than using the delving procedure. This is something that I also noticed in the last issue of Knock, where they presented the idea that if you have a huge dungeon or whatever adventure space to explore, rather than to create a huge map of mostly empty corridors and rooms, you can just handle it with a procedure. Just like the delve, they called it the flux space. The space in between is not that important. You can handle it with the procedure to simulate hours and hours of dungeon crawling in just a few rolls. And then the interesting stuff, the points of interest, these you play out in detail in good old-fashioned dungeon crawling manner. And the delving mechanics are just that. They are a bit more involved and detailed at that, which I think is a neat combination to simulate these huge expedition, this climbing of Mount Everest. You don't want to play out a climb that takes hours and days with rests in between and played out moment by moment. That will take days and weeks, years of campaign, maybe. No, you handle that with the relatively fast procedural mechanics and then the points of interest. The ice cave with the Yeti in it. The summit where the aliens are landing and holding the ancient Cthulhu ritual, whatever. The interesting parts, these you play out in detail, and I think that is a neat combination. After the delving mechanics, the book gives you a number of creatures and adversaries that don't have as many illustrations as I would have loved to see, but there's good base selections of alien monsters, constructs, and maybe natural beasts, strange phenomena, and then very mundane stuff you might find on Ship City or on the Great Ship. A chapter of running the game, well written, telling you as the GM what the game is about and how to lead, how to construct the adventure. You get your tools to create NPC and especially the delves. Lots of random tables to roll on or to get ideas to create these ruins. Well, they're interesting stuff, threats, and important locations. Lastly, the basic secret of the builders, the background of the entire setting, laid out for you as the GM so you can very slowly reveal it to your players. Artifact generator, these can be plot MacGuffins or a really powerful treasure. Finally, we have an starting adventure, the Black Ziggurat, which is a small delve, to be honest. A good starting point and introduction, but there's no shuttle travel, there's no overland travel, there's no intrigue in this. This is good for an introductory one-shot, but nothing more. If you want more adventures, then maybe the one from the Quick Start, though I couldn't find that one at the moment of me making this video. I hope they're reworking it to the newest version of the rules. Back when the Quick Starter was first published, the rules weren't finished yet, so they made a few changes during the beta. I hope they are now reworking that, incorporating the changes, and then republishing the Quick Start so we get another adventure. And then there's the big campaign, the Rose of Algebra, coming up with lots more of intrigue, space travel, overland travel, and many more delves. Last but not least, there are solo rules. These have become very popular in the last few years, really. I kinda get it, but if I have time to do this, honestly, then I use this time to write books. But if you are into this stuff, it is there, and you can solo delve and explore the Great Dark. Yeah, pretty neat. So, what other books might you want to use with this one? You'd want to have the official campaign box set that is coming out. I think it's called The Rose of Algebra, and I already got the beta PDFs. It looks pretty interesting. I only skimmed through it. I think that will become a must-buy for any fan of the Great Dark. Other than that, there is nothing out on first-party products yet. So anything else that you could use for inspiration to get more adventure, more stuff into the Great Dark might be useful. And one of the sources for that might be the Third Horizon itself. There are many more adventures out for this one, and many from the great community of the game. There is now an open license for Third Horizon for the Great Dark, especially, that allows anyone to create and publish adventures, sell them for whatever you want, and don't share your profits. Great open license. So I expect there will be more stuff coming out for the Great Dark, but you can already use the stuff that is out for the Third Horizon and then convert it for the Great Dark, or just use it as inspiration. But you might also use other games that use the Mutant Year Zero engine, for example, the Alien role-playing game. There are, of course, similarities. Both are science fiction games, both have alien creatures, both have greedy corporations, spaceships, and so on and so on. but there are also some more similarities in themes, like the builders from the Great Dark are a bit similar to the architects from the Alien setting. So you can easily import plot locations and monsters from the Alien game into the Great Dark and vice versa. You could also convert some of the rules from that game and put into that game. You might also want to import some of the more comprehensive rules from other Year Zero games if you want just more detailed rules for any aspects of the game. Last but not least is, of course, the original inspiration for the game that you might use to inspire your adventures. Watch a documentary or read a book about the expeditions into Antarctica, the climbing of the Mount Everest, the exploration of the Mariana Trench. Or go and reread the stories from Jules Verne and some of his contemporary sci-fi writers. Maybe put some Mountains of Madness, Call of Cthulhu stuff in there. So who is this for? The logical choice would be fans of the Third Horizon, but I think the setting is so different that that's not really the case. Now, if you like to uncover secrets and go spelunking in ancient ruins, you really like that exploration, that discovery part of role-playing games, and in sci-fi settings particular, then The Great Dark is for you. It's the one thing that it is focused on, but I think it is doing that one thing very good. So if you like to go exploring, check out The Great Dark, try to explore Ship City, join a great ship expedition and go searching for a habitable planet or a jump gate. Anyhow, that's all I have for today. If there's a lot of demand for it, I might do some videos on the rules, tutorial for character generation, combat, delving mechanics. Let me know in the comments below. I will also be getting the campaign boxed set, and there will certainly be a GM's perspective on this channel for that, so look forward to that. For now, I bid thee farewell, dreamers. Might the traveler watch over you until we shall meet again.